This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Majid Nawaz.
Good morning, it's Majid Nawaz here on LBC, leading Britain's conversation, sitting in for James O'Brien for the last day. That's today. He will be back tomorrow, folks. For those of you who are missing him, he will be back. And then I return for the regular show on Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 3. Populism is winning across the EU. Not only is it winning, but Darth Vader himself, in the form of Steve Bannon, has been roaming Europe in aid of the populist parties. Should we be worried? Because like a gun for hire, Steve Bannon's been gallivanting around European capitals, advising them on how they can recreate the Trump effect, advising populist strongmen and women how to come to power. And the result, not just because of Steve Bannon, of course, but because of tectonic plate shifts in our geopolitical environment, leave much to be desired. Italy has just seen a populist anti-EU party come to power in the anti-establishment party that just won the elections there in Italy. Of course, Spain, where Rajoy's government has just fallen, does have a pro-EU socialist party having taken over, but the fragile government depends on backing from Pablo Iglesias' radical left Podemos, which is anti-establishment, anti-EU. So Spain is also sitting precariously on the brink. But worse than that, look at Germany, with the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland party, effectively a far-right party, sitting in Germany's parliament with the third largest seats. France and Marine Le Pen, who narrowly missed beating Macron, is now tweeting congratulations for Matteo Salvini, the League leader in Italy, who's an admirer of Marine Le Pen and her French far-right party. Bravo, tweets Marine Le Pen. It's a victory for democracy against the intimidation of the European Union. Nothing will prevent the return of the peoples to history's stage. That's according to the far-right party in France, or hard-right party, probably more accurately described, congratulating the victory of the populists in Italy. Populism is winning across Europe. It's conceivable that in the EU elections in May, they may well come to dominate the European Parliament. Of course, before the Trump effect, we had Brexit here in the United Kingdom as well. Should we be worried that the Brexit effect, which had a knock-on effect on Trump, which had a knock-on effect via Darth Vader himself, Steve Bannon, coming to tour in Europe and then advising all these populist parties. Now we have the rise of populism, the second party in France, effectively, hard-right populist party in the form of Marine Le Pen's party. They had to even rename themselves to clear themselves of the stigma of being a neo-Nazi party, so they rename themselves National Rally. That's France. Then you've got the Alternative for Deutschland in Germany, a far-right party having the third largest seats in Parliament. Now you've got Italy in the victory in Italy, and that's of course not to even mention Poland and Hungary and the rise of populists there. Steve Bannon going across all these countries advising them. Should we be worried about what's next after Brexit and Trump? Is there another political earthquake coming? I think we should be worried, and I think we, who are pro-EU, pro-allegiance with the European project, we should look at this very carefully and take stock. To understand how to thwart it means to understand its causes. And the causes, I think, we cannot ignore a sense of working class dispossession. We cannot ignore disparities in wealth and inequality. And we cannot ignore the immigration debate. We have to tackle these debates head on. So let me give you an example. I think inequality, disparities in wealth and working class dispossession require us, I think, to go a bit slower in some of the economic projects that leave behind the dispossessed, while recognising, of course, average economic statistics that tell us, on average, that our economies are growing, do nothing to tell us what it feels like in those who are losing their jobs because of those so-called structural readjustments and the anger, bitterness and resentment that they feel at their loss of jobs and the political consequences of the medium-term economic readjustment. So we've got to start thinking, not just in economic terms, but also in political terms, about the consequences of medium-term economic readjustments. As for immigration, I think it's incredibly important that we don't end up, we, pro-EU and small L liberals, don't end up shooting ourselves in the feet or the proverbial foot. And what I mean by that is, it's all well and good us being pro-immigration as we are, but if we end up being so pro-immigration that the European Union breaks up as a result, we kind of it defeats the purpose, doesn't it? And so, you know, between Angela Merkel's open door policy and, let's just say, Hungary's closed door policy, there needs to be a happy medium with a steady and measured immigration policy that ties immigration to a successful integration policy. And if we don't consider this seriously in a new way, I fear we will only end up being our own worst enemies, because in the short term, you know, we will be pro-immigration. In the long term, there'll be no European Union to immigrate to. And so, thankfully, Macron, and I often say I wish we had a Macron in the United Kingdom, but it's impossible because of the first past the post system. It's simply not possible for somebody to sweep the nation's electorate in the way that he did. That's a presidential system. This is a constituency-based parliamentary system. But Macron in France is trying to work out with Germany how to fix this. They are to produce, France and Germany are to produce a joint plan late June in the EU summit to try and work out how exactly to reinvigorate the EU and to create a sense of buy-in for Europe's populace when it comes to the EU. They want to relaunch the Union with ideas that will inspire citizens. Well, I hope Macron can pull it off. But those were some of the causes I've put there that need to be addressed. One of them may well be, for example, a solution could be, there is something to consider here from Italy's complaints. Now that the populists have come in power off the back of campaigning by saying, why are we bearing the brunt of the immigration from North Africa? Because of the Dublin Protocol, the first country they land in is where migrants have to stay. Now, Italy's saying, well, obviously they're going to land at our doorstep because we're the ones that border North Africa. Libya's a war zone. And, frankly, the route into Italy, into Europe, by the way, is through Italy. So obviously they're going to land at our doorstep. But why should we have to bear the brunt of the costs? And, of course, Greece is saying the same thing. Now, if we who are pro-EU want to save the European Union, we may need to start engaging with some of those arguments, uncomfortable as it may well be. And I think, for example, a European Union subsidised border rescue force would be a way forward, which is what Macron is proposing. As opposed to having the Italian Coast Guard and the Greek Coast Guard bear the cost of this, say, well, let's have a European Union Coast Guard that actually bears the cost of rescuing those who are in the Mediterranean and drowning, and to make sure that they then process their asylum claims, as opposed to expecting Italy and Greece to bear most of the cost of this, because if they are bearing most of the economic cost of this, remember I said about 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago that we can no longer just afford to look at things economically. If Greece and Italy are bearing the economic costs of this, what are the political consequences of that? Well, the political consequences of that, as we've seen in Italy just now, is rising populism. We've seen it already in Britain. We've seen it in America. It's happened now in Italy. It will continue to happen in other European countries, including in Germany, where the far right party is number 3 in parliament at the moment, the third largest number of seats. We've got to start addressing these issues in a way that doesn't backfire on us. And that means, for example, engaging with some of these complaints. Tell me what you think. 0345 60 60 973. That's the number to call, or you can text us on 84850, or indeed tweet us at LBC, or tweet me directly at Majid Nawaz. And Nick wants to speak to us from Solihull. Go for it, Nick.
Hello there. Well, first of all, I'd like to correct you on your pro-European stance. Wasn't it blatantly obvious that when we voted, 17.4 million people gave the two fingers up to the European Union? And
half the country, yeah. Half the country.
Pardon? Yeah, half the country.
Yeah, and the other half didn't.
So we're not pro-you, are we? How can we be?
Well, it's 52-48 there, Nick. Come on.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's not like you can't say...
The majority of people voted.
Yeah, that's right.
To leave
I'm not...
the European Union.
Nick, I'm not disputing... It's not about Brexit, Nick. I'm not disputing that.
I know you're not disputing it, but let's put the equation in perspective. We voted to leave, meaning that we're not pro-European.
Well, to put it into perspective, the word perspective means let's actually look at the full facts, and 52% and 48% is quite a narrow margin, Nick.
Okay, well, he's splitting hairs on that then. Well, the reason...
I'm not the one who raised it.
I was interviewed by the Guardian newspaper, and I predicted a domino effect. Because the EU has deserted Italy, Greece, and all these other countries have now become Eurosceptics. The reason being is that, obviously, the migration problem, which was also caused by George Soros, who invested $18 billion to fund open borders. As a consequence, Mrs. Merkel, she's lost her power sort of seat as such, and the new Italian government is rightly so very anti-European, because let's be frank about it. None of these commissioners have ever been elected by the general public.
Well, European Parliament... Hang on a minute. Nigel Farage sits in the European Parliament and he's elected.
He's an MEP, he's not a commissioner.
Yep. But the Parliament is elected and the European Council is in charge. The European Commission, yes, is unelected. That's like saying that Whitehall's not elected. The civil service isn't elected. It's because they're the bureaucracy. The European Council, Nick, which runs the European Union, is made of ministers who are elected in their respective countries.
The Commission has got...
No, but the Commission... Nick, respond to this, please. Answer this. The European Commission are bureaucrats. That's like saying Whitehall and the civil service aren't elected. But the European Council that runs the European Union and the European Parliament that legislates for it are both elected bodies and they run it, and the Commission are the bureaucrats. Do you understand, Nick?
Yes, I do.
Right, so what that the Commission isn't elected? That's like arguing Whitehall isn't elected.
They are elected by a secret ballot.
Who is?
The commissioners.
No, but... OK, all right, but I'm saying I don't... That doesn't really trouble me, because the European Council that runs the European Union is comprised of ministers who are elected in their respective countries. But Nick, thank you very much. That's Nick there from Solihull. You're listening to Majid Nawaz. I want to take your calls. The lines are open. How could we possibly save the EU, those who are pro-EU? Or if, like Nick, you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I want to hear from you as to why. The time on LBC is 11:16.
This is LBC with Majid Nawaz.
Good morning, it's Majid Nawaz here on LBC, leading Britain's conversation. We're discussing the EU, the rise of populism across the continent and its impact on the European Union, and we who are pro-EU, how to save the European Union, and those, of course, who are against it. Of course, your views are welcome too. It's a good debate. 03456060973. Just to briefly define populism for you. Populism is the idea that society is separated into two groups at odds with one another. The pure/good/ patriotic people, and then the other side, the corrupt or unpatriotic, or let's call them what did the Daily Mail call those judges? What do they call traitors, enemies of the people. Yeah, so that's the other side. So populism divides society into basically loyal and disloyal groups. And, unfortunately, we see it rising across the continent. We saw it rising already in America. Now, populism doesn't necessarily mean right-wing. It can also mean left-wing. Populist parties generally tend to believe in economic nationalism, self-determination, protectionism. They believe in moralizing in politics, strongly moralizing, that there is a strong moral view that they take as to the righteousness of their own cause and the lack of righteousness in those who are in the other camp. And of course, as I said, divides society in those who are true, loyal and patriotic and those who are traitors and enemies of the people. And I'm worried that that kind of politics is rising across the continent. Of course, Brexit probably kicked it all off, and then Trump, and now in Europe. How can we who are pro-EU defend the EU? And of course, if you're anti-EU, what do you think of populism? Are you not worried about its damaging effects. Keep in mind, Darth Vader is currently touring Europe. Darth Vader himself, Steve Bannon, he relishes that term, by the way. It's not me libelling. He laughs whenever he's called it. He's advising all these populist parties on how to win elections. 03456060973. Esther from Staines, go for it.
Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, I'm a great fan of you and Sam Harris.
It's not mandatory to say that. You embarrass me. Esther, tell us what you think of the subject.
Well, first of all, I have to say I do agree with everything that you previously said, and I'm absolutely pro-European. I perhaps have the benefit of having different backgrounds and have lived in more than one European country, although I wasn't born in Europe.
Yeah.
And just like in the previous subject, we were discussing about corruption. Sometimes when you come from a smaller country where corruption is really rampant,
Yeah.
you appreciate how things should work, even though nowhere in the world, and we're no exception here in the UK, there isn't a place that is perfect.
Yeah.
Having said that, sticking to the European subject, education is what we need to do. People need to learn from an early age about our democratic institution. Why do we have it? Why do we have them? How they function, and the risk of losing them. Because as you have said previously, we take them for granted. We get so used to them that we get exasperated with something relatively small. And I am not minimizing in any way, any case of corruption or anything that we need to change or improve. There's always room for improvement. But I think we're in real danger at the moment. Sometimes I wonder because how much Russia themselves, how much they may be behind some of these populist movements.
Oh, yeah, Esther, you raise a good point there because, of course, even when it came to the breakup of the EU, of course, Putin did have aspirations to break up the EU. It was very clear with not only Russia propaganda, but also our intelligence services telling us that Russia was attempting to break the EU up. And that's effectively a hostile power attempting to fragment our political unity. Esther from Staines, thank you for calling. Greg wants to speak to us from Edinburgh.
Hello there, Majid. Thanks for taking my call. I just wondered, would you rather that we had unpopulist governments?
Yeah, I would actually, yeah.
So that's glad you say that, because to me your whole argument is quite patronising.
How is it patronising, Greg?
Well,
I'm expressing my political view.
Well, no, but I just get the impression from some of the discussion that people seem to think that there's some sort of moral high ground to be taken, and that you are sure that you are morally superior to some people who disagree with your take on the EU and with certain sort of political issues.
I tell you, Greg, in my own prescription for what needs to be done, I address precisely that we shouldn't feel morally superior to those who've lost their jobs in the working class communities, and then we should address inequality. I mean, that's precisely what I'm saying, that it's the moral superiority that's been going on for so long, which is partly the problem. Basically, closing our ears to hearing complaints.
Well, yes, and I appreciate when you say that. Some commentators don't. But some of I think the reason for the rise of populism and the unpopularity of governments and of the EU is it seems to be that, that people are made to feel stupid and that they don't understand the arguments and that the governments and institutions know best for them, and that's what turns people off.
Yeah. That's right. That's correct.
Turns them towards popular.
That is precisely what. So, Greg, if I can agree with you, that's precisely what turns them off. It doesn't mean the solutions that they turn to are correct. And that's like radicalisation, not to say, of course, that Brexit voters are radicalised, before people jump down my throat. But like an analogy, radicalisation, there are legitimate grievances that anger people before they get radicalised, but it doesn't mean that the solutions they turn to, for example, the Iraq War, the Bosnia genocide, legitimate reasons to be angry, but that doesn't mean that Islamist radicalisation is the solution to those grievances. So, of course, Greg, you're correct in saying that there are real grievances and that people were made to feel stupid and weren't listened to, but I would question whether populism as a political alternative is the solution to that. Greg?
No, well, but if it's populist, then it's popular.
No, that's not true, Greg. No, that's not true. In political theory, that's not correct.
Well, it started with the Populist Party in America.
Yeah. Well, no, Brexit. It started with Brexit, and let's gauge if Brexit is popular.
Populism comes from the Populist Party, the late 19th century in America, which was a working class and agricultural labour.
No, but Greg, populist doesn't mean popular.
Popular.
No, Greg. Greg, it's developed its own political meaning. Okay, so that's like, populist has a specific meaning. That's like saying because Madonna was popular as a pop star, she's populist. No, they're two different things. Populist specifically means strong men or women leaders who campaign on a notion that there are those who follow them are patriotic and those who don't follow them are not patriotic or are somehow treacherous, and that they represent the will of the people in all of their policies. Populism is the merger of a political program with patriotism, when actually, in truth, they are two separate things.
Right. Well, that's fine. But then, if it's not popular, then it doesn't matter how successful or not successful populist leaders are. They wouldn't get anywhere.
Oh, that's not true either, Greg. That's not true either, because apart from in Britain, which has always historically been resilient against populist political parties coming to power because of the nature of our first past the post system, which is one of its benefits, though I want reform. In coalition governments, you don't need a majority. Italy is a coalition government, Greg. You don't need a majority over 50% in that sense of a majority to come to power. You just need to have the largest chunk of votes. Same with Israel, by the way. It's a proportionally representative system, which is why Netanyahu has been in power for so long, because the right-wing radical fringe of Naftali Bennett, who are the pro-settler movement, are holding his government, and they're propping them up. It's incredibly rare in a first-past-the-post system for that to happen, though, of course, currently, with the Ulster Unionists, I would argue it is happening, where you've got a fringe party, a bunch of Looney Tunes over, abortion rights, for example, propping up Theresa May's government, and she needs to do something about it. Greg?
Well, I would, in Italy particularly, you've got two popular parties on either side of the political spectrum.
Yep.
Because I would say that the Liga are towards the right, and the Five Star are on the left.
Yep. And they vehemently disagree with each other and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And both of them are being decried as populist parties. But by joining together, they are popular. So it doesn't make them any less valid because they are in the majority.
No, but Greg, we're arguing semantics, Greg. Come on. We've got to mature the debate beyond this, right? You and I both know populist in political terminology isn't the same as popular, right? And if two populist parties merge forces, even though they disagree on practically everything else, of course, in sheer number terms, that makes them popular, but that's still politically, in language, very different to the meaning of the word populist. And so to split hairs over that isn't really going to get us anywhere. But Greg, thank you for your call. We have HH tweeting saying, Majid, I'm privately educated, Russell Group uni grad, who is anti-EU. I'm sick of being belittled for my views. And frankly, what I find really astonishing is that and this is not an accusation levied at just Brexiteers, others do it too, but Brexiteers especially, if you're concerned about snowflake liberals who are always playing the victim, then, I just gave Greg a lot of time on LBC, so why tweet HH to say that you're sick of being belittled? We just had a civil conversation with each other, and it was a to and fro, and I constantly gave him time to respond to my reaction to his views. It's not like we're belittling anyone. This is the nature of a political debate. Of course, disagreement is going to happen, but that's not belittling. OK, it's 11:31 on LBC. It's time for the news headlines with Anna Harding.
Majid Nawaz on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Good morning, it's Majid Nawaz here on LBC discussing the situation at play in continental Europe with populist parties of the left and the right rising across the continent, jeopardising the European project, and me wondering whether we who are pro-EU with a small L liberal description should respond, change tack, how to respond, what the solution is, and generally praising Macron, which is something I like to do on this show. Now, I mentioned our electoral system. Solomon from Jerusalem has texted saying, "Hello, Majid. I used to campaign for reforming our political system in the UK, but after living 5 years in Israel, I'm now a great fan of the British brackets not so fair, close brackets, structure." And I think Solomon there is referring to what I mentioned, and that is that the first past the post system, for all its imperfections, and I still kind of believe in reform, but for all its imperfections, what it does resist is allowing for fringe parties, often populist, to hijack the system and have an undue influence over the system. Though, having said that, I caveat that with the existing first past the post system, the Ulster, what's his name, Ian Paisley Jr.'s party are still exerting an undue influence over Theresa May. And the example here is, of course, the abortion debate in Northern Ireland, and their resistance to abortion reform in Northern Ireland is holding the entire government hostage. So it can still happen in the first past the post system, but just not as bad. 0345 60 60973. Owen wants to speak to us from is that Farningham?
Farningham, yes.
Yeah, all right. Go for it, Owen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Majid. First-time caller to your program. Thank you for actually having this debate, because every time Remainers and Leavers start to discuss things, it's all about the pound in my pocket and whether our living standards are going down. No one has yet discussed the politics. I'm a Leaver, a reluctant Leaver. I wanted to leave because I wanted to get closer to Europe and further away from the horrifying bureaucracy of Brussels.
Explain that. You want to leave to get closer to Europe. Explain that to us. Yeah.
I love Europe. I'm an immigrant, okay? I came here over 50 years ago. I was born in India, lived there till 16. I am quarter English, quarter Malayali, and half Parsi. Figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Were your family the Parsis who fled to India?
Sorry?
Were your family from the Parsi group that went to India a long, long time ago?
My family was part of the Parsi group that fled to India, thanks to a jihad in Persia.
Yeah.
Now, there are several. If you want to reform the EU, it has to be more honest about where it's going. Ever closer union, it terrifies me. Okay? What does that mean? If it wants to be seen as an entity, shouldn't it have one language? If we can talk to each other, maybe we make more sense rather than hiving off into fringe groups. If it wants to be taken seriously, it should have better friends. Now, if you've got Campbell, Mandelson, and Tony Blair screaming, my immediate reaction is there must be. What's the catch? There must be something wrong with it. I worry about the structure. You said, hang on, Juncker and his crew are just bureaucrats. They don't behave like bureaucrats. They behave like people in black jodhpurs stomping around. If they were pure bureaucrats, but don't they create new policies?
Yeah. This is where, Owen, the accusations of, obviously your black jumpers, it's an allusion to fascism, right? And unfortunately, accusations of fascism are coming from both sides against the other. So, basically, you've got ideological Remainers who accuse Brexiteers of being neo-fascists, and we're going to come to a call in a moment to have that conversation.
No. I don't want to go in there. If you go to the Sunday Times, people responding in, it's the same old screaming and shouting at each other. I'm trying. I really admire what you're trying to do. What I'm saying is, they may be, if the structures of the EU are not strong, and they have lied about the Constitution. Now, look at the American Constitution, whether you like it or not, and look at the European Constitution. The European Constitution, it must be about 5,000 pages long, with subclauses to clauses to subclauses to clauses.
It's too long. Even as a law student, when we studied EU law, received wisdom. When we studied EU law as a law student, received wisdom was, this thing is too blooming long. Even when we were studying it, all the lecturers, everybody knew it was too long.
As a friend of the EU, you've got it. You have really stated it is in a bad state.
Yeah.
Forget populist parties and really dig down into it and say, why are people worried about Juncker?
Yeah.
He hasn't been, didn't he sort of get a dodgy deal so no one pays any, so Starbucks and Amazon don't pay any tax here?
So Owen, what could we do? What could we who still believe in the principle of the European project do to win over people like you? And I'm coming to Corinne in a minute in Edinburgh, so Corinne, bear with me.
Has to be more transparent and not bullying like they bullied the Irish into voting twice, and it has to be for the people, by the people, of the people. Have we forgotten that?
Would you change your mind if the EU started becoming a lot more transparent, a lot more responsive to complaints? Of course, Cameron went and pleaded with them before the referendum and didn't get much joy.
What happened? Yeah.
Would you change your mind then if the EU respond? Because Macron is indicating, and in June he and France and Germany are going to start addressing some of this. But he's indicating that he agrees. He wants the EU to be responsive to some of the complaints.
If they change things like the common agricultural policy and one or two...
That's up for reform. That is already up for reform, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you then change your mind?
Will I still be alive when they change it? I would, yes.
Well, that's what Keynes said. In the long run, we're all dead. And that was actually very much related to the topic. He was addressing what the classicalists in economics, the free marketeers, when they said, structural readjustments mean that in the long run, the economy will continue to grow. And he said, well, all those people that lose out in the short run and the medium run will be dead by the time the long run comes because they can't eat. So, Owen, I hope you're not dead by then, because I hope Macron and France and Germany, Merkel in Germany, address some of this. And Corinne wants to speak to us from Edinburgh. Go for it, Corinne.
Hello, listen, Majid, I'm terribly sorry. I'm in the middle of a beach, and I'm listening.
Is there a beach in Edinburgh? It must be cold.
I'm actually outside Edinburgh in Long Nidri, so apologies if my signal goes in and out.
That's okay.
Lovely to speak to you. I've never called you before.
Welcome.
I think your programme's terrific. I'm shaking, by the way. I think it's very... I feel it's very important not to bandy the words neo-fascism to Brexiteers or Remainers or whoever, but I do feel terrified at the idea that populist parties are called populist and not named for what they are in the most part, which is neo-fascist parties. And I feel that populism gives it a credible title, kind of a wee bit like Brexit has given racism a credible, we can say pretty nasty things about each other under the word of Brexit.
Yeah. Corinne, there's a lot of people responding on text worried even that I'm using the word populist because they're saying you're insulting us because populism is a pejorative. So even populism is a bit harsh for them. But I'm trying to find a word because I worry that, as you even heard from Owen previously, he made an allusion that that the EU bureaucrats are in black jumpers and jackboots. And I think, I just worry that I think if we start using neo-fascism, which technically you might have a point, by the way, don't tell anyone. But, if we start using these words, we're not going to have much of a constructive debate.
I hear that, but the problem is, once we start naming parties like Marie Le Pen, Darth Vader, he was the Hitler of space, if you like.
I did call Bannon Darth Vader, yeah. And Marine Le Pen's party is far right. It's
beyond far right, and it's sweeping America, and it's sweeping here. And as far as naming the Constitution in America as being terrific, I used to think it was open, but Trump is getting away, literally.
Did you catch what he did today? Did you catch what he said? He said, if I get found guilty, he said, as president, I will pardon myself. He says, though, of course, I haven't done anything, but if I have done anything, I'll just pardon myself as president. Can you believe that?
Absolutely, I know. This is why I think it's very careful to name what is happening for what's happening, but not name bureaucrats who are doing their job as black jumpers, and that is, a nonsense. Anyway, that I just had to phone and just say, please, let's just see these parties that we're calling populist abroad.
To be fair, I did when it comes to AfD in Germany, I was very clear. That's, for as far as I'm concerned, that's like a far right party, and it's the third largest bloc in Germany. However, if somebody from AfD did phone me on LBC, what I wouldn't want to do is say you're a neo-Nazi, because I think I have to be able to speak to that person to try and understand and bring them away from it. And I think discourse and how we engage with people individually is different to how we identify trends.
I'm going to... what was that you said, sorry?
I said how we talk to people individually should be different to how we identify political trends. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
just from some of the comments that people were saying, I thought I have to phone in. and
Nice
just
one.
say
All right,
that.
Corinne, thank you for calling
Thank
me.
you so much.
Enjoy
for
your
everything.
windy beach in
Bye.
Edinburgh. First time I've ever heard of someone going to a beach in Edinburgh. It must be freezing up there. But anyway, Corinne there on a beach in Edinburgh. Thank you very much for calling. You're listening to Majid Nawaz here, sitting in for James O'Brien on LBC. And the time now is 11:45.
This is LBC with Majid Nawaz.
Unbelievable. One of my producers has told me she's never seen Star Wars. We're discussing populism and fascism and empire and strong men and strong women leaders. You have to have seen Star Wars to understand what populism means and fascism. Anyway, we're... Well, I guess interesting though, actually, because it is a different generation. In 1977, the first Star Wars film came out. A very different generation. People perhaps don't remember it the same way that I do. Maybe it's just me. Anders wants to speak to us from Vienna. Go for it, Anders. Anders, have you seen Star Wars?
Of course I've seen Star Wars.
Yes.
I'm 41 years old.
You're how old?
41.
Ah, well, there we are. We you and I, us 40-plus people, remember it fondly. And actually learned, I think, probably took much instruction from it in terms of the dangers of empire and fascist rule.
No, not at all. I just wanted to be Han Solo and shoot a bunch of robots.
Right. Tell us what you think about the EU. Tell us what you think about the EU, Anders.
Well, I live in the EU, and I'm a British citizen who lives in Central Europe. And in Austria right now has a conservative chancellor, a populist conservative chancellor, and a former neo-Nazi vice chancellor in the form of the FPO. And I think that it's very interesting the things you're saying, but you said something earlier about what can British people do who are in favor of the European project to band together and help save it. Well, of course, the answer is nothing, because you're leaving in 300 days. So it's not really your business any more than it is the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, if we leave.
No, you are. That's definite. That's a definite. I'm sorry. You're leaving in 300 days.
Okay, I still think, Anders, that it should exist, though, on continental Europe, whether we leave or not. So I think there's still, obviously, it's like saying, should abortion law be reformed in Ireland, even if we're not Ireland? You still have a view on it.
No, you can have a view on it, sure, but don't act like you can have a say in it anymore. I mean, that's the whole point.
Well, people listen to my views in Vienna. They happen to be called Anders, and they tune in, so I clearly do have a say.
I know it's only when I'm on vacation though. Now listen, the thing about with regards to the FPO and the AfD and everything, you have to understand that there's something very interesting going on here. For a start, everyone talks about them being far right and stuff, but if you really talked about the FPO, who are the far right party in Austria, and you put their social and economic policies up against Theresa May's Conservative Party, you would find very little difference indeed. It's just their history that differentiates them. In terms of their political aims, political outlook, and the things that they want to achieve within the society, large swathes of conservative Britain are in whole line complete agreement with them.
Yeah, I think people are concerned about the slippery slope, though, because, of course, a far-right party, to gain electoral popularity, wouldn't necessarily campaign on a far-right platform. So Marine Le Pen, I think, for example, Anders, just to put it to you, Marine Le Pen's stated policies aren't what concern people in as much as the fact that her party, under her father especially, was a far-right party.
Absolutely, there's a far-right party, but they've never been elected. Don't forget that. They've still never held any major office, and the FPO have still never really held any major office. Though now only the Social Democrats came in second place, but the Conservatives here didn't want to lose them. Now, you have to understand, right now what's happening, though, is with regards to populism, the reason it's on the rise, a while ago, as you very well know, you're probably very familiar with this, an obscure book called The Clash of Civilizations was released.
Huntington.
To mild acclaim. Huntington, by Sam Huntington. There was one of several that was released during the time. The far-right believes that right now, you are dealing with an inevitable clash between civilizations. You're dealing with the civilization of the Christian West and the Muslim East.
Yeah, it's a flawed thesis, though, Anders.
In the
terribly flawed.
This is what they believe.
Yeah, that's right.
This is not what I believe.
Yeah, of course they believe that. They're resurrecting the Crusades. I'm fully aware of what they believe. Yeah.
But let me finish. Now, in this crusade, you have to understand that the biggest threat to them, there are two big threats. The first big threat comes to them from the east. The second biggest threat are those people who stand in the way of them doing what they believe is necessary. That includes Angela Merkel. That includes the liberals. That includes anybody who stands up, for example, the rights of the individual and the belief that everybody is, the rights of the individual, especially with regards to Muslims and Christians being treated the same way. Russia believes this. Vladimir Putin is a huge believer in this. A lot of Russian money goes through the European Parliament, through every far-right party, including UKIP, straight up through Breitbart and into the Trump White House.
I'm glad I opened with Star Wars, because it sounds terribly Star Wars-like there, Anders. Sounds like they're building an empire.
Well, sure. I mean, if you want to Benny Hill it, go for it.
Yeah. Well, no, seriously, I think this is, on a serious note, I think what you're saying in terms of collaboration across borders with this ideology and funding coming from across borders, this is empire building stuff. This is like, let's take over Europe with our populist anti-establishment ideology.
Sure, but there's a second point with regards to how Russia achieves this. Number one, achieves this through the direct financing of parties who will spread this message. It also it also doesn't necessarily want to do anything except for stir confusion. The whole point of Russian foreign policy right now, it knows, is to weaken the European Union by making the European doubt itself, and that's why they fund the very parties that want to seek to do that.
That part is definitely correct. I think Putin has vested interest in making sure that he's funding the populist left and the populist right, because the key point there, Anders, and I love the way you ended that, is to make the European Union and actually European citizens doubt ourselves. And the last hour over corruption, I think, points to that. People that believe somehow that, Britain is worse in corruption index, is worse than Russia. I think the doubting ourselves bit is definitely working. Anders from Vienna, very interesting, if not pessimistic call there from Anders, but thank you for calling in anyway. Rudy from Fulham, go for it.
Yeah, I don't think the EU can be saved. I don't think you can stop populism, because the EU reminds me of the Titanic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Titanic sunk because 5 compartments got breached. Yeah, and it could have stayed up with 3 or 4. And the EU's year by year is getting a breach after breach after breach. So England's gone, Poland's basically gone, Hungary's gone.
Matt, the Poland and Hungary have gone. You mean, have they Brexited?
Yeah, technically they've gone. They don't listen to anything that the EU says. They do what they want. Yeah. They just take, but they don't give anything.
What do you are you pro EU or are you pro Brexit?
I voted to leave because, well, I don't know. I just couldn't vote to stay in.
Doesn't that sentence, folks, to describe what we had? I voted leave because, I don't know why I did. Rudy, I think the problem here, before I let you come back on this, Rudy, I think the concern that we who grew up studying the EU project, working in some capacity or another for an ever closer union. I grew up studying EU law, for example, and the concern we have when you say I voted to leave the EU because I don't know why. I mean, that's the kind of. A, I'm happy you said it because it's why we need this conversation. But also B, I think we can't surely, all of us collectively as a country, destroy the future of our younger generations and the polity that they want to grow up in because I don't know. That nonchalant approach to the future of the political construct of our nation, I just want to caution against it, because the young overwhelmingly voted to stay in the European Union, and just imagine, Rudy, how they feel if they hear that the reason you voted against their wishes is because, I don't know. Rudy?
Okay, firstly, I have 4 children, okay? Yep. They're all under 16, okay? And when I voted, their future was the first thing on my mind. I didn't care about myself because I'm 52, so I'll be gone soon.
Yeah,
but the point is, and as for the young, we keep coming back to this argument about the young. The young get older.
But how could their future be on your mind when you don't know why you voted to leave, Rudy?
I didn't say I don't know why I voted.
Oh, you did say I don't know. I heard you.
Yes, but I meant in the terms of there were so many reasons.
All right. Okay.
Put it into one.
I'll take that.
Started laughing almost immediately.
Yeah. No, I'll take that. Well, can you give me a reason?
Yes, I can give you a reason. Yeah. I don't see how my son, my daughters are going to get a job in this country. I really don't see how they are.
Rudy, real wages and employment continue to rise. Actually, interestingly, despite Brexit, we have an incredibly strong economy at the moment, despite the vote on Brexit. I mean, I know we haven't Brexited yet, but even in America, it's the case. The economy is growing. We're slowly, ever so slowly, recovering from the global economic crash. So I'm not so sure, Rudy, why you don't think your 4 daughters are going to get a job.
Because you keep talking to people like me about the economy.
Well, you just said the economy is...
The economy makes no difference to me.
Well, no. It makes a difference to whether your daughters are going to get a job. It may not make any difference to the political consequences of the argument. I've already acknowledged that in this hour. But it does make a difference as to whether your daughters are going to get a job.
How so?
Well,
We've got
because
some
Rudy,
jobs.
economic
We've
growth
got so
means
many
job
jobs in this
creation,
country.
Rudy. Come on,
So
Rudy.
many jobs in this country. We can afford 3.5 million people from other parts of Europe to give them jobs.
Yeah, that's what economic growth is. But our NHS is telling us that we've got too many shortages for positions that need to be filled. For example, for nurses and doctors, which is why they're asking for Sajid Javid to loosen his immigration restrictions, because we haven't got enough people to fill those jobs. You know, at the end of the day, growth means jobs. But anyway, Rudy, thank you for calling in. I wish you and your 4 daughters the best, actually, and I hope that they do find gainful employment, and I'm sure they will. That's Rudy there from Fulham. Pleasure speaking to you. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this subject, and I'm sorry to all of you trying to get through on that. We've got to move on. Are you addicted to your device, your smartphone, your iPad, or any other form of device? Tech firms are adapting to encourage users to use their devices less, and I'm discussing device addiction up next on LBC.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.